The National Desk, America's News, now.
The law enforcement response at Robb Elementary School on May 24th, 2022, and in the hours and days after, was a failure that should not have happened.
A community still grieving 2 years later, reacting to a scathing DOJ report about the failure of law enforcement in Uvalde, Texas. And from the Pacific to the Northeast, more snow expected, and the totals are adding up to unbelievable levels. Then, Meta and minors. Just how much did the social media giant know about the dangers for children online? This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David, and right now, the Pacific Northwest again facing the wrath of snow and ice with more precipitation to come. Iowa, Kentucky, Tennessee also enduring the punishing snow. And today, lake effect storms hitting western New York, bringing several more inches to the area. Northeast of Buffalo, seeing 2 to 3 inches of snow an hour today. And this, of course, on top of the more than 40 inches that already fell last weekend. So we're talking about nearly 6 feet of snow there since Sunday. As far as extreme temperatures go, you can see here parts of southern U.S. They are warming up just a bit. This afternoon, temps in Dallas approached 60 degrees just days after dipping into the teens. But in the north, the frigid cold, that maintains its grip. Just 5 degrees in Minneapolis today, -5 in Great Falls, Montana. And the weather-related death toll of top concern tonight. That number now surpassing 30 across the U.S. in just the last week, up from the 14 fatalities that we reported to you just yesterday. And the weather is still impacting flights across the country. More than 600 flights canceled so far today, another 3,100 plus delays. New tonight, cascading failures. That's how the U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland described the events that led to the tragedy at Robb Elementary, where students and teachers were locked in with an active shooter in Uvalde, Texas in 2022, leaving 21 dead and 17 surviving victims.
The victims and survivors of the mass shooting at Robb Elementary on May 24th, 2022 deserve better. First and foremost, the 19 children and their 2 teachers who were stolen from their loved ones should be here today.
The Justice Department released their report detailing failures in leadership, training, and policies. Many officers didn't know who was in charge, what they should do, or whether the active shooter was dead or alive. Families of the victims are demanding accountability in response to the DOJ report.
I hope that the failures end today, and that local officials do what wasn't done that day, do right by the victims and survivors of Robb Elementary, terminations, criminal prosecutions.
Just heartbreaking. Kimberly Mata-Rubio's 10-year-old daughter, Lexi, was among the 19 children killed in that attack. Today, she said that she hoped state and federal leaders would enact sensible gun laws. Well, another day, another round of strikes. The U.S. military has carried out fresh airstrikes against Houthis in Yemen. That brings the number of times the U.S. has struck the Iran-backed rebel group to 4 in just the last week over their shipping attacks in the Red Sea. The Houthis, who say they are doing all they can to support the plight of Palestinians in Gaza, already responding. The group's leader saying nothing, not all threats, the missiles, the pressure will change our position, vowing to continue until the blockade on Gaza, in which exit and entry into the enclave is prohibited by sea and air, is lifted. President Biden acknowledged today the more aggressive strikes seen in recent days have yet to deter the Houthis from continuing, and that more will have to be done. Democratic Senator Chris Coons backing that sentiment.
My hope is that we will find a way to deter Iran, but for the intermediate term, it's going to require more action to prevent the Houthis from striking shipping.
On the ground in Gaza, a total internet blackout has hit its 7th day, the longest communications stoppage since the start of the war, according to the main communications company there on site. The blackout has left besieged civilians unable to call for help and receive ambulatory services, and left aid workers struggling to distribute much needed supplies. The outage also spelling trouble for a critical deal. Tonight, unclear if the medicine delivered to Gaza meant for hostages has reached them. Earlier this week, a deal agreed to by Israel and Hamas would see critical medicine get to the more than 100 hostages being held captive. But due to the lack of communication with mediators on the ground, IDF forces say they don't have the ability to guarantee they're receiving what they need. As the military ground offensive continues, more insight from Israel's government tonight over what they envision in the next phase. Israel's President Isaac Herzog saying today that establishing ties with Saudi Arabia, a strategic player in the Middle East, would be key to ending the war in Gaza.
The Saudi option as part of it, as the whole normalization process, is a key to the ability to exit from the war into a new horizon. It's still delicate, it's fragile, it will take a long time, but I think that it is actually an opportunity to move forward in the region toward a better future.
Recently, the Biden administration has been pushing the idea of normalization in ties with Saudi Arabia in exchange for an expedited path to a Palestinian state. Though just today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he informed the U.S. that he opposes a Palestinian state as part of any post-war scenario. This as the State Department seemingly pushed back on the stance.
There is no way to solve their long-term challenges, to provide lasting security, and there is no way to solve the short-term challenges of rebuilding Gaza and establishing governance in Gaza and providing security for Gaza without the establishment of a Palestinian state.
And new details tonight. Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis ordered to appear before a court. A Georgia judge has scheduled a February 15th hearing to hear evidence regarding accusations that Willis and her lead prosecutor engaged in an improper relationship and misused public funds. Willis has not commented on the alleged relationship, but has until February 2nd to respond to the accusations in writing for the court. And prosecutors in Las Vegas, they say the prime suspect in Tupac Shakur's murder has been plotting to threaten and or harm a potential witness. Shortly after he was arrested, Dwayne Keffe D. Davis spoke with his son and prosecutors, and that's where they believe the planning began. However, defense lawyers claim the conversation was in fact about a threat made towards the suspect's family and not the other way around. Davis, who's pleaded not guilty, is currently on house arrest with a trial that's set to begin on June 3rd. Developing now, Hunter Biden has agreed to sit down for a closed-door deposition on February 28th. This after he skipped his first subpoenaed appearance this past December. Also on Capitol Hill today, GOP lawmakers continued to lay out their case against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, who they say violated his oath in managing the border and should be impeached.
Winter means those already sleeping on the streets in subpar conditions now have to fear for their lives.
It's too cold. I believe we won't survive another night with these cold temperatures.
As some migrants wait on a bridge in Texas, others await their next steps in big cities they've traveled to by bus. New York City Councilwoman Ina Vernikoff posting this video of migrants arriving at a high school in New York City. The Denver Gazette reporting on the difficult dilemma at its hospital, Denver Health. A surge in new immigrant patients from South and Central America, equating to 8,000 people and 20,000 visits, costing $10 million in additional uncompensated care in the last year. Taxpayers left to foot the bill, there and elsewhere. And in largely Democratic California, voters asked if U.S. borders are secure in preventing people from entering the country illegally, overwhelmingly said not secure. 62%.
Move to the side.
City by city, town by town, all roads lead to Washington, where lawmakers continue to work on solutions. 14 Democrats this week joining Republicans to denounce President Biden's, quote, open border policies, as GOP lawmakers press ahead with their impeachment case against the man in charge, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas.
As a result of the reckless actions by Secretary Mayorkas, no American is safe.
I believe he's violated his oath.
Democrats argue there's no legal basis for impeachment.
This isn't a real impeachment. It's a predetermined, pre-planned, partisan political stunt.
Now, today's hearing was the second of two on the matter, with the committee vote on whether to impeach Secretary Mayorkas scheduled as of now for January 31st, and that would likely be followed by a vote in the full House sometime next month. Amira?
And Christine, I know Republicans have complained that Secretary Mayorkas did not heed their calls to testify before the committee trying to impeach him. What's the latest on that front?
You know, Secretary Mayorkas insists it was a scheduling conflict in terms of why he didn't come, and he said he would be willing to do so at a later date. He has already testified 27 times, more than any other Biden cabinet member, before Congress. As legal scholars insist they don't have the legal basis to impeach him, there's a good chance that the House may have the votes to do so anyway.
We will see what happens. Christine Frizzell reporting live for us in D.C. Thank you. And coming up, a partial government shutdown hangs in the balance as the House heads to the floor, and the executives for Facebook and Instagram are sued again. Just how bad is social media for minors? Plus, if fighting fires is not dangerous enough, new studies show our brave first responders are in danger of a much more serious illness just by doing their job. Tonight, the House of Representatives passed a short-term funding bill, 314 to 108, sending the measure to President Biden, averting a partial government shutdown. The new deadlines are now set for March. And the New Hampshire primary is on Tuesday, but Iowa's second-place finisher, Ron DeSantis, he's left the state already, and he's now focusing on South Carolina and future primaries. Back in Florida today, the governor will campaign in South Carolina over the weekend. The idea is to pressure his rival for second, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, to perform in her home state. Haley is polling ahead of DeSantis in New Hampshire. Both say they're a better choice than Trump, but neither has been willing to go after him directly. And we're learning more about findings in a New Mexico lawsuit against Facebook and Instagram's parent company, Meta. Newly unredacted documents show executives at Meta were aware their algorithm gave predators access to underage users. National correspondent Atrel Nashar has the details.
Newly revealed evidence appears to back up claims that when it comes to kids, Facebook and Instagram parent company Meta prioritized product growth over safety. In its lawsuit against the company, New Mexico Attorney General Raul Torres alleges executives did not take immediate action when internal findings from 2021 said 100,000 children per day were receiving explicit content, including pictures from adults, according to the Wall Street Journal.
They're designed in a way to actually funnel likely victims of sexual exploitation to potential predators.
A Meta spokesperson tells us they want teens to have a safe experience online, pointing to their dozens of tools to support kids and their parents. Just Thursday, the company launched this night nudge feature for teens to discourage activity after 10 p.m. The spokesperson says, "We've spent a decade working on these issues and hiring people who have dedicated their careers to keeping young people safe and supported online." The complaint mischaracterizes our work using selective quotes and cherry-picked documents.
They are not incentivized to protect the children that they are monetizing from.
Titania Jordan, co-author of Parenting in a Tech World, says Meta could easily make changes.
Like giving the parent or caregiver the opportunity to say, you know what, I don't want my kid on Instagram from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And when I want them to be on it, I'm going to hit a toggle and allow them.
She and lawsuits like New Mexico's argue Meta is concerned about the wrong things. According to the lawsuit, Meta was scrambling in 2020 to address an Apple executive whose 12-year-old was solicited on the platform, noting this is the kind of thing that pisses Apple off to the extent of threatening to remove us from the App Store. The CEOs of 5 top social media companies, including Meta's Mark Zuckerberg, will soon have to answer to lawmakers for what they say are systemic failures to protect kids online during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing at the end of the month. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atra El-Najjar for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Atra, thank you. And the number of people that applied for unemployment benefits last week, that hit its lowest level in more than a year. The Labor Department revealed today that jobless claim applications fell to 187,000 last week. That was down 16,000 from the week before. It was also the lowest total seen since September of 2022. The 4-week average of jobless claims also decreased to just over 200,000. The White House press secretary reacted to the new data this morning and says the White House is optimistic about the trend.
So we know that it's going to take time for people to fully feel what the president has done. But again, we've seen consumer confidence go up. So people are starting to feel it.
Well, we have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter to you. We're taking the pulse of America.
We have 3 confirmed deceased. We have 1 survived. They are on the way to the hospital.
2 adults and a teenager are dead after a live wire fell on the car they were sitting in and caught fire. We saw police at the scene speaking with someone who was visibly shaken. The spokesperson for Portland Fire and Rescue says first responders found all 3 people dead outside of the car, leading him to believe they got out and were instantly electrocuted. Somehow, a 2-year-old survived unharmed.
The 2-year-old is in good condition and does not appear to be affected by the electrical current that hit the vehicle.
And now he's warning people about the dangers of live electrical lines and what to do if you find yourself in a similar situation.
Please remain in your vehicle. The insulation of the tires should keep you safe.
At the intersection of Highway 17 and Beaumont Drive is this nearly 2-acre plot of land. It may soon be a refuel market and gas station.
There's so much growth in the area that we're needed.
But resident Caroline Williamson, who lives on Beaumont Drive, doesn't agree. She sent me this video to show how bad her property flooded during the nor'easter in December. And if a refuel market were to be built just up the road, Williamson fears it will only make it worse.
When we have another, let's say 11, 12 inches at one time, that's not going to hold it. Where's it going to go?
Greg Walker, the contractor working on the project, says they have a plan to drain stormwater. It consists of an underground R-tank storage and infiltration system, as well as planting trees to absorb the water.
Our goal is, at the end of the day, to not only control the discharge, but also provide water quality that meets the standards in today's designs.
The reality is we want to get the person that's running around putting a gun in people's faces.
Surveillance video shows the moments a black car passes a mail truck on the 7200 block of 179th Street Southwest. Then the armed suspect gets out and confronts the postal worker.
He was not injured in any way. There were no shots fired. It was a give me the keys. He complied and off he went.
It's unclear how many mailbox keys the thief got away with.
There's been mail theft along here for a while. You often see mail on the ground. That's why we got a lockbox.
Edmonds Police and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service went door to door, warning neighbors and looking for any other useful surveillance video that might help lead them to the suspect.
Is there anything that is going to have my identifiers on it, my name, address, of course, but anything else that is sensitive that comes in the mail, that's terrifying.
And coming up, Spotlight on America dives into the serious risk for firefighters that goes well beyond the flames. January is Firefighter Cancer Awareness Month. The World Health Organization recently designated the job of firefighting as a carcinogen, putting it in the same category of risk as cigarettes. With young firefighters facing devastating diagnoses, Spotlight on America's Lisa Fletcher discovered failing protections both in the gear they wear and in the insurance coverage for life-saving early screening.
Diane Cotter's husband, Paul, a firefighter, was in perfect health until 2015. At just 55 years old, Paul had an aggressive cancer.
When the doctor said those words, it's cancer, I screamed, and my husband just broke out into a white sweat.
It would end his 27-year career in firefighting and send Paul into a depression.
His depression is what spurred me on to research firefighter cancer. This room, it's the war room.
Diane launched a crusade, turning her knitting room into a command center, firing off 25,000 emails, trying to unravel the mystery of why so many young firefighters were getting cancer. She discovered that embedded in their turnout gear were fluorinated chemicals known as PFAS, a class of waterproof materials long suspected to be carcinogens.
The numbers of these chemicals in our report, they look like a typo. They're so high.
One of them, PFOA, was just placed into the most dangerous class of carcinogens by the World Health Organization.
Our number one exposure we get to carcinogens is simply putting on our bunker gear and taking it off every day.
Ed Kelly is the general president of the International Association of Firefighters.
Cancer's been plaguing the fire service for generations, but it's at an epidemic level now.
We obtained a running list of job-related cancer deaths among firefighters since 2018. It wasn't uncommon for us to find victims in their 20s and 30s.
We know with cancer, early detection is one of the best ways of getting at it. Should firefighters be eligible for early screening and advanced monitoring?
It's critically important that firefighters get screened at younger ages. We know that a lot of our health insurances won't cover that screening at a younger age. We need change in that.
We contacted 8 of the largest health insurance companies in the U.S. to find out if they're covering screenings for early detection and at what age a firefighter is eligible. None of them answered our question.
Some places you are covered. Other places they have minimal coverage. So we need to do better. We'll go from Main Street to Wall Street and from the boardroom to the courtroom and take this fight wherever we need to go.
And the pressure is mounting. More than 20,000 firefighters, including Diane Cotter's husband, Paul, have joined a federal lawsuit against PFAS manufacturers.
The polluters have to pay. They've poisoned America's bravest. I stay in contact with so many widows and widowers of firefighters, and I want them to know we're seeking justice for them. We truly are.
For Spotlight on America, I'm Lisa Fletcher.
.3M has begun making its payments to veterans as part of a $6 billion settlement for faulty combat earplugs that led to injuries, including hear loss. As much as $250 million have been handed out so far. More than 30,000 claimants have agreed to the settlement, but it remains unclear how much each individual will receive. And the lineup is in. The 2024 Super Bowl pregame performers have been announced. Country Music Hall of Famer Reba McEntire will grace us with the national anthem. Pop rock star Post Malone will sing America the Beautiful. R&B soul singer Andra Day will sing Lift Every Voice and Sing. Of course, Usher will headline the halftime show, so suffice it to say, an array of genres will be represented. By the way, this is the first time Las Vegas will host a Super Bowl in NFL history, making it all the more exciting. That does it for this edition of the National Desk. Thanks for watching.